nothing. Well, good afternoon, CNY Nation. I'm Dr. Randy Fink from CNY Fertility in Colorado Springs and the evolving CNY Fertility at the Miami Center of Excellence. And I am in sunny South Florida today. And joining me in the great frozen city of Syracuse is none other than the man himself, Dr. Robert Kiltz. Good afternoon, Dr. Kiltz.
Awesome. Hi, Dr. Fink and everyone out there in CNY Fertility Nation. Glad to be here. It is upstate New York, but there's sunlight. And that's the good news.
That always is.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for everybody who is joining us today. It's 4:10 on the East Coast time, and we're getting a little bit of a late start. So sorry for that. And let's see if I have a list of people who are coming on. Okay, yep, we've got Dee and Tia and Yesenia and Van from Montreal. Welcome. So glad to have you. Yulitza, we're glad to have you. Good to see you. And thanks so much for spending a piece of your afternoon with us. You know, last time, if you were with us, we talked about the keto diet. We talked about, hi, Melissa. We talked about the inflammatory state of our bodies and how the keto diet can help with not only fertility but inflammation in general, and how it can lead to an overall healthier being. And Dr. Kiltz is, of course, the expert on that. Lana, glad to have you. Chloe, Sarah, thanks for being here. Today, I thought we might address something a little bit different, and this has some to do with fertility, but also really just kind of some things with life in Jennifer, in Jennifer in general. Because I saw Sandra's name. Sandra, hey, glad to have you. Nice to see you here. Sandra's my patient here in Miami. One of the things that really affect all of us happens when things don't go our way. Now, certainly in the fertility world, that unfortunately, that may have been what brought you to us to begin with, but it goes beyond just fertility. It goes into relationships. It goes into the workplace. It goes into life itself. So given that Dr. Kiltz is such a, let's call him a great wisdom. He's a great source of wisdom and just a great person, a great soul to have around us. I thought it might be nice to kind of talk about some of these things. How do we approach life when things don't go our way? So, Dr. Kiltz, for starters, let's begin that sort of on the fertility side of things, because for as many happy stories as we have, sometimes things don't work out as well. How do you approach that on a daily basis?
Well, number one, thank you, Randy, Dr. Fink, for bringing this and sharing the conversation. And to everyone who's joined us today, Bobby, Holly, and more, really appreciate it. But just the fact that you're infertile or having some fertility challenges is hard in of itself. I mean, the thing that's supposed to happen naturally, and when it's not, or you're miscarrying, that automatically is hard. So our emotions, we're human beings. We're highly emotional. Emotions are natural. Some of us are more reactive, and others are just kind of a lot less. And I know for myself, I'm a very reactive and responsive. And I have found that the emotional journey of infertility, of life's challenges, relationships, and work, and whatever it is, come to haunt or hurt in all of us. So I've found that it is critical every day to find some mechanism to sort of manage, control, or use the energy of the emotions, whether they're negative or positive, to sort of make a better inroads in how to make our infertility journey more fertile, if you would say. And for me, and is I started years ago focusing on mindfulness and meditation, and I wrote a book, and that's why we've integrated Eastern and Western medicine into this journey.
You say using the energy, whether positive or negative. So we all know that sometimes it's not positive, even when it's negative. How would you suggest, how do folks use the negative energy? It's hard not to let that negative energy consume you and drive your thoughts and let it feel like it's creating you instead of you creating it.
Well, maybe the part of this is to let go of the idea of positive and negative altogether. We're experiencing a life-changing event, infertility, and we feel it. We feel sad and mad and depressed, and yet what that energy has done is said, hey, I'm going to go seek out some help, or talk to someone, or look to find some ways to improve the journey. And Western medicine obviously offers treatments and diagnostic modalities, but the one thing we haven't been very good at is how do you utilize the energy of finding things like massage, acupuncture, mindfulness, prayer, yoga, or some book or story that someone's brought to us. And I'm kind of talking very general right now, but ultimately, sadness we feel, which is a little bit, I say, the push to get up and do something about it. Because if we were experiencing infertility but just kind of sat around, didn't think much of it, we wouldn't get to find a solution to it. So I always think that everything happens perfectly the way it's supposed to. Now we just have to continue to look around for the things that we human beings have shown as helpful in the process, even though it's really, really hard.
Well, let's just take a moment and say hi to Holly and Bobby Lynn in Buffalo. We've got Monica all the way in Georgia. I should say all the way up north to me in Georgia, all the way down south for Dr. K there, Crystal and Becky Ann. And Tia says, that emotional draining energy is heavy, and it is a very heavy thing. But that heaviness really comes as a construct of our mind itself. This is our mind that's telling us these things. Wouldn't you agree? It's not the world telling us these things. It's our mind that's telling us these things. So is that where mindfulness comes in?
Well, the mind creates the world. The world doesn't create the mind. So ultimately,
say that again. That's a very important thing. The world, the mind creates the world. The world does not create the mind.
We believe the experiences that happen out there create what happens in here, but in fact, it's the opposite. And so the thing you can change, you can't change the color of the sky or the temperature of the day, but you can change the thought of any of it, which ultimately changes the molecular energy and vibration within us, which lowers cortisol and epinephrine and brings up serotonin and oxytocin. It helps the blood flow to the core and sort of says, okay, fight or flight wants to make these things move fast, but says no. And so much has been in our human experience for thousands of years. We're really working to sort of help everyone between our Fertile Hope Yoga, our mindfulness, the books I've written on the Fertile Secret, our support group, and the support group that all of our patients, clients, and village at CNY Fertility Nation or global or world or universe, whatever you want to say, but it's not just us, it's everyone as a human being. So that we're really working to say, hey, I'm hurting. And what we want to do is to say, listen, I'm here to listen to your pain And maybe I can tell a story, or someone else who's experienced it can tell a story, because through stories, we feel better. We feel like we're not alone. And the one thing that's been challenging this COVID, because I'm a hugger, and I know that hugging and crying and just letting it out is so important, because the heaviness will hold us down. But that's why we're doing these lives. We're not having these large group meetings, but it's not necessary. We can communicate this way. And the more we do these things, we can help the mind change the construct of what is happening in the world, in our world.
You know, Becky Ann raises an excellent point, and it's a good question. Do you think that people who aren't going through this in their lives can understand the stress that some of our patients have? Do people who haven't had issues with fertility, can they understand the heaviness, the amount of weight that's carried on the shoulders of folks who are trying to have a baby?
I don't think anyone truly understands what any of us are really thinking and feeling, but we've all experienced some loss and some hardship in life, whether it's infertility or loss of a loved one or an illness. So I think that what we're all practicing to do on all sides is listen, learn, love, and forgive. If and this is what I've practiced and I've learned through the Secret and the many of the ancient texts that I have written, my books, the Fertile Secret, my Mind Body Smile, because I need it, is that the most important thing that we can do is learn to find the methods for us to solve the problem. And the problem may not be to solve that you're suddenly fertile to have a baby, but it may be just solving my way of letting the heaviness go and finding a way to live with the pain, but maybe put it in a place that I can find more joy and release the sadness. So this is where, again, there's so many people that have experienced it, and we're bringing everyone together. And now we have the Fertile Spirit with Danielle and Christine are going to be bringing that together to talk, because it's get acupuncture, get massage, do yoga, do all these things, but human beings like to talk, and we like to find someone that would listen to our story. And I know I had a very heavy, hard day yesterday, and I needed to find someone to talk to, just to listen to my problems and my challenges yesterday that would help me feel better. And we all experience those things, and human beings need a method to talk to someone. And so no one can ever know it, but I'm finding love and forgiveness, and I'm Christian in my philosophy that I focus on, but I focus on the Quran, the New and Old Testaments, the Bhagavad Gita, or many other philosophies that I read every day to help bring that sadness and kind of dust it off and bring the joy of the journey. And so the answer is, no one can really understand, but I think there are so many people actually that can and want to help. And that's what we need to be sharing.
Well, and Yelitsa tells us that that this brings her hope, and it keeps her going after losing her dad in August and her grandfather last week. So our hearts go out to you, and our prayers are with you. Rob, you bring up some, you talk about, it makes me think of some of the more stressful times that we deal with our patients in things like miscarriages and pregnancy losses. And we had a good question about how do you recommend folks cope with the waiting? Because it's a waiting game, right? And as you're getting prepared for a procedure, as you're waiting for a procedure, as you're waiting for a FERT report on your embryos, um, what do you do with the waiting time? Because that seems to be the time that the mind doesn't want to shut up.
Well, I grab a journal and start writing in it, and this idea. So when I read a really great book is called The Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson, and there Wayne Dyer's got so many great books. I'm always looking for the philosophy of life, and so that things happen to all of us in life, and you're not waiting for anything to happen in life because you're living life and the things happen. How can we turn the construct of the things and make them kind of part of the good things that happen to us in life, which is really hard to do. And that's why the mindfulness is so critical. You're not waiting for anything. You're getting up every day and you're dusting yourself off, even though you've fallen on your face or you feel sad and mad or whatever it is. And all of us, again, I feel that quite often. But that's why we have these conversations, to bring all these great people together so we can all talk about and share our feelings and ideas of what we lived. But we are all born, we will all die. Things will happen in the middle. And why some things happen to one person and not another, I mean, that's the mystery of the universe. But I believe that we all are children of God, and actually we all are the God creators of everything in our life. If we can imagine that we're just putting the pieces of the puzzle together every day, and whatever is happening us today, it's almost like you got to like jump for joy and imagine that it's all God's gift to the creation of tomorrow. And even though you think it's hard and hurtful and sad, we've got to imagine that he, she, it, the spirit, the nature, God has something amazing for us. Between my sister dying young and many problems that I've had in my life and still continue to have challenges, I work to read something that tells me it's all part of the plan. And so you're not waiting for anything. You're in the process of doing to kind of plant the seeds, but you have to fertilize and till the soil in order to see the amazing things. That's why gratitude for where you're at and what you have, even the troubles, is such a powerful thing to do.
So what you're talking about is really faith. It may not be faith in a God, or maybe it is faith in God as God, whatever that means to you, but it's faith that we're part of some bigger picture, we're part of some grander plan. Does that capture what you mean?
It's the miracle that any of us are even alive. And in our aliveness, we have to imagine the miracle of what happens every day is perfectly part of the mystery. And this term God is the everything that everything is. And I personally believe that faith is critical. Faith first, and the belief in the thing you desire as if it already is. And if you haven't read The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, you must. And then I wrote The Fertile Secret. But the idea is that we create the vision in our mind, but then we can put pictures and ideas and share them with everyone. And that's why when we see someone with the thing we want, a baby, we just have to keep that. And we need to be grateful for that which they have, because that'll bring the power and energy to allow the universe to conspire in your favor. And all
right. But let me ask you a question here, because, I'm one of these people that, sometimes days are really hard. And sometimes it's really hard to keep a positive attitude about things. And you mentioned it yourself, when you feel like you've fallen on your face, when things just aren't going your way and it feels like that the end of the story may not be the story that you wanted to hear. How do you stay positive? How do you really look and say, hey, let's appreciate the little things. Let's appreciate those things around me. I'd love to be able to do that, but sometimes I find it hard. When you're really down, it's hard to think about those things.
So when you're really down and you find yourself in the weeds and the thorns, you now have the ability to change your thinking, but that's the challenge. So what I always do is I get the book that I can open up, or the audible that I can hear the words. And I love reading James Allen, The Mind is the Master, and to listen to the stories that will realign my thinking and my brain to get me away. You're driving down the road, and if you take your phone, you go like this, you go over here. So you have to keep your eye on the prize in the mind of the masterful life you choose. It is difficult though, but let's not even use the word difficult. Let's say it's easy if you say it is, and I practice that. And so again, since you can't change the outcomes, you can change the thought of the outcome, which then changes the outcome itself, believe it or not. And so, how many times have we all experienced something was sad and bad, and ultimately it turned out to be something good? You lose one thing to bring about another. Let go and let God. And thank you, Erica. And prayer, meditation, affirmations, and yoga, EFT tapping. I personally just love to go, and I do meditation 5 times a day. I may just put my timer on for 5 minutes. I sit in quietness, but my mantra is, thank you, God, Lord, Creator, for the day, for everyone and everything in my life. Thank you for this experience. Then the more we can bring that to the top of the mind, this is the cream of life, it comes. But that's the part that Western science and medicine hasn't really played a very good story, in my opinion. And I know, for being 65 soon, how many amazing things that have happened to me that were labeled as bad, but I can just tell you, they all turned out to be bad, like badass, amazing, great, excuse my language. And again, it's all just a matter of the construct of thinking. And if you really look back at all of our religions, at the real text message within them, it really is an affirmation of elevation. And I say that we're all temples. We are not amusement parks. The more we spend our time in the meditative moments of life and the beauty, the better the heart is filled and the joy. Whether you find joy without children, or with adopted children, or foster children, or donor eggs, donor sperm, donor embryos, whatever it is, whether you're suffering from separation, loss of a partner. I got a call the other day. A husband died, and it was really sad. And we talked and listened, and at the same time, these are not things that you could solve in a moment. This is so much we take about time. And as they say, time heals all wounds. And imagine that you're waiting for nothing, but you're actually in the front of the line, or the front of you're the top of the temple, and you're the one is now in charge of creating your party of life. And the more you spend in the temple, the better you are, less in the amusement park. That's the part that I say is really critical. We're running around working on our bodies, but we're not working on the minds. And the mind is the master, and the more we do that, the better.
Hey, CNY Nation, if you're just joining us, Conversations with Dr. Kiltz and Dr. Fink, it's 35 minutes after the hour, and we are very happy to have you. Jessica, it's great to see you. Nice. Thank you very much for your kind words, and Sandra as well. Thank you very much for that. Hey, Doc, let me Let me mention the 900-pound gorilla, because it's something that we've all had to deal with here, especially when we go through crises in our lives, and that is the relationship that we have with our partners. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it ain't. Especially in fertility, this puts all kinds of stresses on couples. How do you advise people to handle those stresses?
It's real important to get some counseling and help through the process. And whether you're talking to a friend, a family member, a therapist who's experiencing this, or part of the village, it is important to talk. Talk to your friends and guys and gals. Talk separately to their cohorts, right? Their the band of brothers and band of sisters, which is critical. But I think it's important for all of us, men and women, to both learn to listen, love, and sometimes we just need to spend more time, as they say, two ears, one mouth on all sides. And we often want to fix things, but as they say, time fixes all things in one way or another. But you need to dig deep into all of these resources to help you through the process. And it's not a quick fix. And it's one day you do it right, the next day you flop up. And so it's like breathing. We breathe 20 times a minute ish, 15, 20 times a minute. We focus on the breath and the smile. You eat one time a day is my recommendation, and drink water. But the one thing we're not doing is focusing on the emotional, the mental, the support, the healing of the mind, and how we can love our partners and listen more to our partners, and even to accept the emotional craziness that happens to all of us, some more so than others. It doesn't, whether you're male or female or transgender or whatever your gender description is, we're human beings. And a lot of what we're really sharing is how can we all listen and learn. Most of all, we need to do it with love. And again, the fertile spirit. I wrote The Fertile Secret because I needed help. And the Mind Body Smile is all about what do we do every day to listen and learn with our partners. And it's not easy. It's very challenging. And if we focus our life on complaining, what we complain about will show up. It may be, this is what I'm hearing, experiencing. I'm working to understand you in this process better, and please help me. And I know I need lots of help in that.
Kelly brings up an important point, and that is that in our lives, one of the most common stressors we have is that around money. And particularly money becomes an issue when we're talking about fertility treatment, which is, of course, one of the reasons that we exist, to be able to provide that high quality, affordable care. But the meds are expensive. And in fact, life is expensive. So when the money part starts to get in the way of feeling like you're complete, or feeling like you have the ability to approach life, what would you say to Kelly?
Well, if you haven't watched The Secret, it can be very helpful in this construct and the concept. I wish I should be turned around as I am winning the lottery and the medications are flowing to me in abundance. It's a challenging one, but it's all part of this. And the medicines are flowing. You never know. Someone might say, hey, I have some extra meds, and here they are. We also are working on a lower med protocols. I'm working on my entire team, whether it's letrozole 10, Clomid 200 as a single oral pills, or it's 100 units of gonadotropins, which you're trying to get only a few eggs anyway. But a lot of the construct of the story of the fertile secret is like The Secret. It's all about the law of attraction. When the mind is focused on the abundance of your life, and I am fertile and I am receiving the medications or the funds to provide with these medications, it's more likely to happen, believe it or not.
But you're talking about more than just the power of positive thinking. You're talking about really embodying that hope and that desire and making it a part of you, right? That's more than just positive thinking.
Right. I think that's a good point. It's the concept of positive and negative really should be blown up, because that's a judgment of what is good and bad. But ultimately, all things work in our favor. So we need to construct the story of that which we desire as if it is, and that's an abundant story. That's all things come to me as I dream and desire. And some things might happen to you on your journey to get that you might say, well, this is negative and this isn't right. I lost everything, not fair. But ye of little faith, simply sit still and hold the story in the mind. So it really is the law of attraction. That's the concept more than anything. I live life with a little bit more laughter, and I'm a bad artist, and I'm a bad musician. But when I say the word bad, I know that the more bad things I do, I'm going to create something good. And so, but even the bad is part of the good, but we're not supposed to label it as good or bad, but it's all part of the journey. So I would say the construct is just hold on to the dream, that which you desire. And we're learning a language, the language of love, the language of God, the language of creativity. No matter whether you have money and fame and cars and babies and it doesn't matter. It's the ability to see where you are and what you have as if it's perfect, but you hold the dream of that which you desire, and it will come. If that makes any sense.
I've heard you talk about leading with positivity. The first thing that you do, lead with positivity. And I think that's a very good, practical tip for people. Leading with positivity. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, so energy, electricity, and magnetism is really the reason the universe exists. So we're able to function. You have to have negative and positivity. All right. So this idea of positive, negative, good and bad, right and wrong. But the more I can put a shining light on the beauty of what is, which we use the story of a positive light versus a negative light, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, easy, hard. But if we can imagine that it's all moving in the direction, right? Energy moves from one pole to the next. And so I am taking a lot of the negative and making it positive, which again is critical for the flow of energy in our bodies. And so it's the daily or the infinite practice that is critical, because our construct is mostly on positive things and negative things. But we're all working to find the language that we can understand that'll work in our favor. But it's really seeing that everything already is working on our favor and everything already is positive. But I don't know if that answers the question in a way, but it's a practice that I know has taken me many years, and I still have to work on it every day, because I do know for me, like yesterday and parts of today were a challenge, and I had to find the way to sort of bring the light to the dark.
I think that's great. And I do want to get to, by the way, if you're just joining CNY Nation, we're talking about how to approach life when things don't go right. I'm Dr. Fink, Randy Fink, and with me, Dr. Kiltz, as always. I want to ask you about some practical things, some practical tips, things that people can do every single day. But I do want to call attention to Amy, who's with us in the mountains of North Carolina. Thanks for being here, Amy. And I want to read what you wrote here. This helped her through her son's pediatric leukemia diagnosis. And I think it's very powerful. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. That embodies leading with positivity, that first step forward. So, Amy, gosh, thanks so much for that, and thoughts for your son there. Hopefully, things are all done for you. Dr. Kiltz, did I lose you?
You lost me for a moment, or I lost you, but why don't you bring the question back again?
You talked about your mantra. What's a mantra?
A mantra is a phrase of words. I think words and language are the best way to do it because our brain creates in words. As the Bible says, the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, is God. And so a mantra is something you can always go to shine the light on the dark. As Philippians 4:8, it's a really great one. I've used it and I have read it and I write it as much as I can because thank you, God, Lord, Creator, for the day. I'm grateful for everything. So that's my mantra, that even in the midst of something, or it's simply, I love you. And it doesn't have to be spoken out loud. It is simply repeated within the mind, because you cannot eliminate what we call the negative thoughts, but you can elevate the positive thoughts. Because the more you focus on the positive, the negative, it's like the separation of the sea, and the ability to go across from Egypt to Israel. It's the ability for any of us to cut through with a butter knife through anything. And
so the mantra brings focus. Would you say it helps to quiet some of the noise?
It all, because the noise is always there. I mean, yeah. The universe is immense noise, but our job is to quiet and to focus, which when we hone in on the focus, we're able to hit the target. But find something. So I wear my cross, my ring, and St. Christopher's because that's also a little bit of talisman, something we can touch or kiss or focus on, just like we clasp our hands. We have that mantra, thank you, God, Lord, Creator, for this day, and I love you. I'm appreciative. That's all it needs. And it may be infinite times a day. You're in traffic and suddenly you're getting mad at the person in front of you, behind you, next to you. It's the thing that you go to, like, boom, thank you, God, please forgive me, I love you. And the gratitude. Let me slow down and back up. I am really sorry that I maybe have pushed something, whatever it is. I pushed a button. We all have buttons, don't we? But the talisman and the mantra is the way to help us focus on the positive, to help the cortisol and epinephrine go down, and the brain to be capable of better able to focus and master the environment. Because when we're on fight or flight, we can't see things. We get lost. And we want to be found and not lost, although we're all lost from time to time.
Aren't we, though?
Yeah.
So mindfulness is really an act of silencing the noise, would you say?
It's It is silencing the noise, but it's more or less, it's a tuning. It's tuning. It's finding the right channel that's going to elicit the clarity of that which you desired, where you want to go, or to see the beauty of the day. So it brings clarity to our life and our purpose and our journey. That's where I think we go with all of this.
You know, my mindfulness in the morning is listening to the birds. I like to have my coffee. I like to hear the birds, and you start to recognize the same birds that seem to be talking to you, and that brings me my focus. And then during the daytime, it's easy enough to go back to that thought that is like the little dinging bell that allows me to bring back that focus. And that's where my mindfulness is. How do folks learn about mindfulness? How do you pick up that habit?
Well, we all find something. This is why going out in nature and going for a walk or just observing nature, and nature is observing us because we're all nature essentially. And if you think about it, the instinct of our nature is all of our emotions. There's nothing wrong with them, but they can derail us in going in the wrong direction. But some of the things that I've together in the Dr. Robert Kiltz, MD website, my Mind, Body, Smile website, my daily intentions and inspirations. But today, all you need to do is Google mindfulness, and there are infinite resources. Your yoga class with Fertile Yoga with Danielle and the Fertile Spirit. There are just this practice of mindfulness is ancient as humans and the earth and the universe is. Our ancient ancestors were also listening to nature and talking to nature and bringing that understanding of how powerful all of us in this universe are, but yet how small, just a small little fraction of what all things are. But we're a piece of the whole in essence. And as we think both how powerful and weak, that's the positive, the negative, all of it is the yin and the yang. And Wayne Dyer is another one that I've loved, and Deepak Chopra. And I've written, I have a new book coming out, Living Your Best Life, which is something that, it's sort of emulated myself, but each and every one of us has the resources that are infinite today. As we put time in getting on a treadmill or doing our work at work in our profession or cleaning the home, we must focus on what we put in the mind, which I think ultimately is first. Faith and the fertile mind will help in so many ways bring about that which you desire.
Well, what's interesting about that is that if you think about how our minds are hardwired, right? It goes back to caveman days. There was no walking around and sniffing the flowers. It was kind of constantly and always being on guard for the saber-toothed tiger who was going to jump out from the tree line, or the pterodactyl that was going to swoop down and take your baby, or the rival tribe that was going to come and steal your meat. It was always monitoring. And so the brain is always watching, and it's always working to try to keep on guard for things. And that's really what creates anxiety. So anxiety and depression, where do they fall in the grander scheme of things?
I think anxiety and depression are normal for human beings. So is sadness and madness and all the constructs that we live. I think that with our busy, busy, busy lives, we are not taking the focus and the time to be mindful and help reduce the anxiety and stress. My bet is infinite years ago, we were focused on our day-to-day work of food and shelter and clothing and survival, which no longer in the same way. So this is why I personally do pottery and painting and do these things, because it keeps me busy. I used to sew and do quilting, and at finding something to do will help you take your mind off the sadness, the anxiety, the frustration, the fear, and the worry. But those are still as natural today as they were before. Our minds are hardwired, but in actuality, they're very moldable. They're changeable. The neurons change. The synapses, the chemicals are all changeable. This is so much why I talk about keto, because in fact, kiltz's keto lifestyle also reduces a lot of the inflammatory particles that are also partially responsible for anxiety or sadness or emotions, believe it or not. So if we can work on all of these things, and the same thing, so with motion of the body, rather than the fight or flight exercises of running and biking and doing the get the heart up, do the calming exercises, which are, I call them the work in, not the work out, but Tai Chi, yoga, walking, hanging out with friends and sharing stories or playing a game. Those are the things that are critical, because sadness, anxiety are absolutely normal. If you're feeling it, that means what you're doing and where you're at is has some naturally anxiety provoking things. So now how do you do the work? And that's what we're sharing, is what is the work that we can do to learn to reduce inflammation, which ultimately I've seen so many conceive and deliver a baby when they either weren't getting pregnant or they were miscarrying. So the mindfulness part of this story is equally as important as kiltz's keto lifestyle. And it's equally important to me as the Western treatments with the shots, the pills, the surgeries, and all of it. Because at the end of the day, if you can control the mind, you become the master of the universe. And you can see all the things that you have or have had or will have as perfectly gifted to you by God.
Hey, I want to say hi to Devin, who's joining the CNY family. So glad to have you having your consult tomorrow. Lots of information on the on kiltz keto and on keto as the fertility diet. So that's really what we embrace, and it's a very important part of Dr. Kiltz's lifestyle. Kelly, you make a good point there too, that when it's hard to continue to think positively when anxiety is so bad. There's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, discussing that really the only thing that matters is what is right now, that depression is angst about what happened yesterday, and anxiety is fear about what happens tomorrow. But both those things are just constructs of the mind. It's your mind keeping itself occupied, because yesterday is gone and tomorrow has yet to be. The only thing that we have is right now. And that's part of the message, I believe, of mindfulness, is to appreciate, and this goes back to where Dr. Kiltz started, to appreciate what we have right now, to be thankful for what we have in front of us, and to really embrace the power that goes along with the life we have at this moment. Would you agree?
I agree completely. I've suffered sadness and depression and family members that have committed suicide or died in loss through relationships, and I can tell you that the feeling, they're very hard to clear. And yes, there are drugs available, and some people find the drugs, and I think there are food choices that may be helpful. And we are always learning. I'm learning every day. I'm finding something new and different that might say, oh my God, I had never known that. And so we're on a learning journey every day. And so if you're feeling it, and it isn't so simple to say, I'm being positive, but when we begin to read the books, or we begin to read the stories or listen to the stories, we begin to shine a little bit of light into the darkness. And in essence, you don't need an outside light, it's within our brains. And then when we realize the power of the brain, I recommend no reading of murder mysteries, of watching the news, of reading the things that are negative and nasty in our lives, the political craziness of the world. It will instill the anxiety because the human brain believes everything you listen to, everything you think about, everything you watch is actually happening to you. There's nothing but truth and reality in the mind. It's all true. So when we begin to change the things we listen to, we watch, we read, we think about, we are in control of every bit of that. And that's the critical point to this mindfulness. That's why we decided if we're going to watch Dr. Fink and Dr. Kiltz, or if we're going to watch, one of the news shows. And I watch them from time to time, but I really work to even be grateful for the stories that we're learning on all sides. And I work and practice not to judge any side, because the moment you judge one thing, when it's opposite of the thing you think it should be, your brain and mind go like crazy, and you flood your body with epinephrine and cortisol. I'm ADHD, attention deficit, hyperactive, dyslexic. The reason I have to do these things in order to keep my mind focused. But I would say that it's all practice every day and never stop. Till the day I die, I will practice all of these things every day. I read the New Testament, the Old Testament. I'm writing every day in my journals, thank you, God, Lord, Creator, for the day. And the more I do this, it helps me. The more I hear your stories of how challenging and hard it is, the more grateful I am, because I too have been there, am there from time to time, and I will be there again, because this is the nature of life.
Words to live by. And speaking of words to live by, Kelly mentions, and I meant to bring it up before, your daily inspirations. Just tell us about that real quick.
Well, so my sister died, a good friend died. I lost my marriage broke apart many years ago, and it was very sad and stressful and depressing. A good friend of mine brought together some ideas, and we talked about Buddha and mindfulness and many stories. I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, The Shack by William P. Young. I went to Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins, and many others. And I began to look and learn and find something that would help me in my day. And I created I created Mind, Body, Smile nearly 20 years ago. I used to do a daily video. I'd write a poem and put it out there. And I'm always a little afraid to share, because I'm not sure that I'm worthy or smart enough or good enough. But there's so many amazing, smarter and better at this in some ways, but I'm really beginning to learn that we all are the artists, and we need to all put it out there and share. And it's the thing that has helped me find the light in the darkness that I have suffered from for years and years and years. And yet the suffering is like the honing of metal in a fire. It doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And we're working every day to help each and every one of us. So my Mind, Body, Smile is the recognition that we're all suffering one way or another. Each and every one of us needs help. And as a physician, I realize that I must put out there what I've learned is helpful and part of the toolbox of human health and wellness. And as I said, faith and food make a fertile Ferrari, and we're all that. And so the daily mantra, gratitude, goals, and game plans. And just look at my stuff and you'll look the crazy man. But through that, be crazy, I say. Make some mistakes. Look a little foolish. It's good, actually, because the more you grow from that, the more you be like, wow, I feel better. And that's what we all want to do. And we want to feel better through the mindfulness. And if we can work away from the drugs and the potions and the pills that we may not need.
Well, CNY Nation, we're so glad you could be with us today, 6 minutes after the hour. Conversations with Fink and Kiltz, what to do when it all goes wrong. There is light in the darkness. The mind is a powerful thing. And as you build your families, we are here for you at CNY Fertility. Hey, thanks so much for being a part of our day and letting us be a part of yours. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Dr. Kiltz, thanks for everything, man.
Well, I'm really grateful. Thank you, Dr. Fink, for sharing your thoughts and ideas, and to everyone out there. And we're going to read more of these. And I think it's really important that we really, really work and continue to put our mindfulness together. So my love to everyone. Thank you for sharing. I'm working to be better every day. So again, so grateful to everyone. All right, guys. God bless.
Bye.
We'll see you on Sunday morning at 10 and next week with Dr. Fink. Take care.